UFC 287 is in the books, and I am here to recap. My name is Mio, and this is Mio on MMA. Before I continue on, just pointing it out, in the description wherever you're listening to this, or watching this in the case of YouTube, I suppose, although there is no video accompaniment, there are some links that lead to Discords, social media, other places you can find this, things to get deeper into what I do. And check them out. There you go. UFC 287. This was a good card. This was a really solid card. I enjoyed it pretty much top to bottom. It took a little bit to get going. The Sam Hughes versus Jacqueline Morin fight was a little bit frustrating. Steve Garcia and Silent Nurembeke was fine. Ogden Bahamondes was probably the worst fight on the card. Lupe Godinez, Cynthia Calvillo will be the other candidate there. But from about the Joe Pyfer, Gerald Meerschaert fight onwards, this was pretty damn dope. I did go pretty poorly on this one. I went 5-7. Of the 7, and to be clear, one of the 5 wins I got, that being Luana Pinheiro, I actually don't think I should have gotten. So there is that problem. I thought Michelle Watterson won that fight. We'll look at the stats. We'll look at the scoring, and I'll see if I can piece it together. I think in the end, she kind of won over a first round that I don't support her winning. But we'll think about it. We'll go further through it. I will say of the 7 losses, a couple of them I could see coming. Obviously, Joe Pyfer nuking Gerald Meerschaert. Something I always saw. I had predicted that Israel Adesanya had multiple ways to win, so him getting a win is not surprising. I would also say that I kind of called the Jacqueline Morin and Raul Rosas Jr. collapses that led to their defeats. So there is that. But that doesn't mean that there weren't fights I was horribly wrong on. Rob Font, Adrian Yanez, for example. Fantastic performance by Rob Font. Welcome back, my man. Kelvin Gastelum showing his first improvements in ages. Like I said, Michelle Watterson Gomez performed way better than I thought she would. And also the Steve Garcia knockout. Did not see that coming. To be honest, I probably will still not pick Steve Garcia, but hey, I guess I gotta come have my come to MMA Jesus moment that like sometimes a dude who's just really big and wild can get the job done. Main event, Israel Adesanya winning back his belt, becoming the first 2-time UFC middleweight champion via beating Alex Pereira in the second round by knockout. And then taunting Pereira's kid, which is not nice, but the kid has been mouthy. And then having a great post-fight speech. Everything in the lead up to this fight was really kind of turning me off. Like the dog collar bit was a bit weird. The talk that Adesanya was putting out there was all a little bit weird. I was very worried about it. I was like, you know what? This guy has lost 3 times to Alex Pereira. I have to pick Alex Pereira. Even though I can see how to win the fight, and Israel did not actually do that. He more or less replicated his near finish in the first MMA fight, the 3rd fight overall, where he had Pereira hurt and failed to finish, and finished him this time. He had enough time that the bell wasn't going to save Pereira this time, and he put him down. First round was concerning, I'm not going to lie. Izzy was not super active. He actually landed less strikes than Pereira in the first round. And again, I feel like I have to say this every time because periodically people get on my case. It's like, you just look at the numbers and you look at strikes landed, and then you apportion the win based on volume, and that volume is not always good, and whatever is damage. I get that, but like obviously hitting somebody more, and particularly if you're a big puncher, because I don't think anyone could remotely consider Alex Pereira's offense to be hollow or empty or undamaging, is generally not a great plan. You're facing a guy who hits really, really hard. If you are going to get outlanded, not by any significant margin. I think it was like 20 to 15, I think. I have the stats right here. Why don't I just pull them up? Official UFC stats, yeah. 20 to 15 in the first round, 29 to 26 in the second round. Obviously stepping it up there. not by any like significant margin, but you're facing a heavy hitter. Getting hit more than you are hitting him is not usually a great plan. He was leaving door opens for some counters, and Pereira in the second round was getting real comfortable. Now that wound up being his downfall, so maybe that was the plan. It looked like he had Izzy hurt. It looked like he had Izzy cornered against the cage. It looked like he was going to unload on Izzy and get the finish. And then Izzy shells up, comes out of the shell, and bam. It wasn't just one strike, but like it was more like a bam, 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 bam thing. But like catching him with the big kind of overhand hook off the right side, puts him down, gives him the hammer fist on the way down, and boom, done. Referee steps in, good stoppage. Izzy's champion finally has that monkey off of his back, but he's probably gonna have to do it again because I assume we're gonna probably just get another fight. And I know, okay, there are a couple things that'll possibly get in the way here. Pereira did struggle to make the weight here. He is talking about going up to 205. But is there really anything else at middleweight for Izzy? Because if we pull up, hang on, let me pull up the UFC rankings here because, of course, as flawed as they are the ones we're dealing with here. So athlete rankings, UFC, middleweight division. Robert Whittaker's number 2. He is 0-2 against Izzy. Marvin Vettori's number 3. He is 0-2 against Izzy. Jared Cannonier is 4th. He is 0-1. Paulo Costa is 0-1. So the entire top 5 below Israel Adesanya has a combined record of 0-6 against him. And then you're talking like Dricus du Plessis. There are people who want to see that fight. It'll probably be fun because Dricus du Plessis is a mess. But then you're into like Sean Strickland, the retired Derek Brunson, and Roman Dolidze, who just lost to Vettori. So I don't really know what else you do. I assume we're getting the trilogy fight, frankly. It's the thing that makes the most sense for both guys. If Pereira can still make the weight. I will say that the post-fight reaction from the fandom for this fight is just weird. Because normally when you see someone get knocked out, you get some fans, you get some haters. That's normal. But it's kind of weird, like, because both of these guys seem to have almost exclusively haters. Like, there are people who really don't like Alex Pereira. And I don't really know why. Like, they'll state why. They'll talk about his weight bullying status or whatever. The fact that he would lose to Bo Nickel and Johnny Eblam and whatever, and like any decent wrestler. But like the former, okay, so do you hate the other weight bullies? Because there's a lot of dudes who a big part of their success, we're talking about one later actually, is being really, really, really big at a weight class. And I feel like those, I can't empirically prove that. Well, I could, but I'm not. We'll put it this way. I'm not going to empirically prove this. I feel like there are fans of, for example, Kevin Holland, who is by their definition of hating Alex, a weight bully. And they like him, they don't like Alex. It's very weird. Very strange in that regard. And there's a lot of dislike for Izzy in regards to his less than masculine aura, like kind of the nerdy, super kind of fruity guy that they don't like. And it's just it's a little bit weird. It's a bit bizarre. Twitter is a weird place when it comes to this feud. But I'm enjoying it. And I can never predict this fight. I've gone 0-4 picking this series of fights back to kickboxing because I picked Izzy, I picked Alex, and he finally loses. So there's your lesson, I guess. Next time this fight comes around, bet the house on who I don't pick. Although I will say it. Is he finally replicating some stuff? Although again, not doing it the way I would have drafted up a game plan for it. But hey, good fight, fun fight. Moving on to the co-main event, which was less of a fun fight. That was George Masvidal in his retirement fight against Gilbert Burns. This was not the greatest fight in the world. I mean, for comparison purposes, Alex Pereira in a loss, getting knocked out in the second round, landed 49 significant strikes. Burns in a win lands only 42 significant strikes, 77 total strikes. Pardon me, Masvidal actually landed more strikes. Okay, so the first round was really, really close. People are really, really angry that Eric Colon, I think it was Eric Colon, scored the first round for Masvidal. He did. That was the one round that Masvidal won on any card. Chris Lee and David Torelli giving the clean sweep to Burns. I gave the clean sweep to Burns, but I'm going to make this quite clear. That first round is close. Really quite close. It depends. Like, we're talking a 2 significant strike differential in landing. Both guys did hurt each other a little bit. Masvidal landed more strikes. Yes, there was a takedown with 6 seconds of top control, but like, is that not what we're supposed to be getting rid of as a way to win rounds? Taking someone down and using it to do very, very little damage? Like, takedown, 6 seconds up. Admittedly active. I want to be clear. Like, Burns was active from top. Ironically, the second round was where I was disappointed in Burns because he got kind of passive. I have no problem with Eric Colon, who had a bad night judging, to be clear. He was the dissenting voice on a lot of rounds throughout this card. That was fine. That was absolutely fine. I scored that round for Burns. I thought he landed the best strikes of the round, particularly when he caught Masvidal doing that stupid jumping knee thing that he likes to do, trying to channel his knockout of Ben Askren into like a smaller, defining round moment that doesn't work because it didn't hit Burns once. It might have hit him in the belly once, but yeah, it just got him countered. That and a couple other moments were like, okay, Burns has hurt him more than Masvidal's hurt him, but like, Masvidal hurt Burns, Masvidal outlanded Burns, and 6 seconds of top control doesn't win you around, or it shouldn't. I shouldn't say that it can't, but it probably should not be the defining point on this kind of fight. Second round was Burns taking him down, getting some top control. Did not do much. Like, the second round was kind of my disappointing moment here, where like we get single-digit strikes landed significantly, anyways. Apparently, this was the most active round at 32-27 in total strikes landed, but it was very, very weak. It was a lot of Masvidal hitting off his back and a lot of Gilbert Burns landing from, very pitter-patter ground and pound. Not a lot there. It was kind of disappointing because like there was a big slam there on the first takedown, and it did look like Burns was confident. He was pressuring. He was getting going in there, and it was a good moment for Daniel Cormier to talk about wrestling and how this could have been stopped and how the wrap defense by Masvidal was a bad idea. That's the beauty of Daniel Cormier, although he is terrible. I actually had a conversation during this card on Twitter with somebody about his deal was like talking about how Michael Bisping was the worst commentator. And I disagree with that. And I want to be clear, this is an indictment on the UFC sort of fighter technical analyst section of the booth, that there isn't way better than Michael Bisping. It's that Daniel Cormier and Dominic Cruz get lost and stuff so often, and Joe Rogan is out of touch, that I actually would probably put Bisping number 2 behind Paul Felder. Although Laura Sanko, give her more time, and she's going to be up there. Because the thing about Laura Sanko is that all the problems I have with Laura Sanko, she's getting better at. But anyways, second round was Burns's. Unfortunately, it was kind of dull. And then in the third round, it was Burns's again. There was like 90 seconds in the first round, or in the third round, where Masvidal actually put the pressure, actually got behind his jab, actually started doing stuff. But then Burns turned the pressure on him, started hitting his jab, wobbled Masvidal more than once, was pasting him with a right hand. Masvidal was doing what George Masvidal does, which is allowing himself getting pressure back into the cage, into the fence repetitively. There were some moments. He had a nice 1-2 on the counter against Burns, and actually had Burns hurt, it looked like, but it still got grabbed and clinched into the fence and then taken down with 60 seconds to go and some top elbows from Burns as he smothered Masvidal to finish the fight. That was the best round for Burns. I'm going to say this. I'm going to say some nice things about George Masvidal before I get to some bad things about George Masvidal. Good thing about George Masvidal, he looked fine in this fight. Like, coming to this fight, in my preview, I said he's looked terrible. It's not that he lost to Kamaru Usman. It's not that he lost to Colby Covington. It's not that he's on a 3-fight losing streak. It's that everything about his game appeared to have been breaking down. And that wasn't the case here. There were some hallmark problems, getting caught against the cage, not really necessarily having the greatest shutdown wrestling on the planet while being offensive. But he looked competitive throughout. Like I said, I didn't score a round for him, but I have no problem with giving him the first round. No problem with Eric Lowen's scorecard whatsoever. It was probably the best case scenario you are generally going to see for a retirement fight at a high level. Because they did not give him somebody to go off into the sunset with. They gave him Gilbert Burns, who by my reckoning is probably like the fourth best. I'll go fourth best. Fourth best welterweight on the planet. And he went out there and had a competitive fight with him and did a good job. And actually, his post-fight started very good. He's talking about inspiring people, about his inspirations, about getting out of this sport and like, it's not in me no more. I don't feel it anymore. Having that good moment that I was loving. I was loving it. I don't know if anyone really gets this. I was a big fan of Masvidal once upon a time. And then he had to bring the politics into this. And this is kind of my thing, is that if you're a don't bring politics into sport kind of guy, you should hate Masvidal. And the problem is that the people who say, don't bring politics into my sport, tend to still love Masvidal because they tend to love politics being brought into their sport. They just want it to be their politics. I personally would love if MMA had no political component to it, because it's almost always toxic when it happens. It's like connections to Ramzan Kadyrov or Donald Trump or figures I disagree with. And even when it's stuff I agree with, Tyron Woodley being a Black Lives Matter advocate, for example, it's still done incredibly poorly, which should not be surprising. Mixed martial arts fighters, combat sports athletes in general probably should not be your source of political insight. They really, really should not be. These are people who, to do what they do for a living, which is getting punched in the head, have to have some level of detachment from reality. Because, and we're talking about like Masvidal, a guy who lost multiple times and really never learned from a lot of those losses. Like a lot of the things that cost him losses back in like 2010 are still applicable to him now. Like that's not exactly the person who's got the insightful, introspective way of looking at things that is going to be great for a deep philosophical take. And I apply that to Tyron Woodley. Again, this is not about my politics being agreed with. It's about I don't really care for it whenever any fighter does. And of course, greatest president, Donald Trump, whatever. If you think whatever. You want to keep that private, go ahead. There is a fighter on this card that I will probably never talk about the politics of, beyond this kind of like vague example. I've watched his Twitter, whatever. I get the distinct feeling that me and him, I'll give away that it's a him, disagree politically speaking, and he lives in a red state. So I get the feeling that we disagree. But he doesn't bring it out in the post-fight. He doesn't really bring it out anywhere other than like his Twitter. And I don't talk about it because he keeps it out. He keeps it to himself. He keeps it private thoughts. I am not here to be like, I'm going to hate a fighter because they have thoughts I disagree with. No. That's fine. But I am going to comment on when you dedicate the second half of your retirement speech to sucking off two other men in Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis. Which, by the way, bad move. If you're trying to get bonus points with Donald Trump, and to be honest, if you're trying to get bonus points with DeSantis, you can't talk nice about both of them. They want you to talk nice about them and then shit on the other guy. I thought that the response from the crowd with the "Let's Go Brandon" stuff actually was kind of muted. I just expected it to be bigger. There are people arguing on Twitter about like that if you suggest that it was kind of muted, they're like, no, they were chanting it. They were loud and they were after it. I'm like, I just expected more, I guess. By the way, the "Let's Go Brandon" chant also kind of stupid because I guess I don't get having to hide behind coded words and stuff. You don't like Biden, cool. Say you don't like Biden. There you go. That feels like probably the better option. Anyways, Gilbert Burns wants a title shot. Ain't gonna get it. I don't think. He's on a 2-fight winning streak. I think he has to win another fight before he really. I mean, he might, because the other option is to give Belal Muhammad the winner of Covington versus Leon Edwards. Or I guess if Covington wins, you could do the trilogy fight with Kamaru. But I mean, he might get the title shot, but he probably shouldn't. It should probably be Belal Muhammad in a title eliminator fight. That's the meritocracy way of doing this. Rob Font, Adrian Yanez. Hey, you know what? This was a great fight. Rob Font took some hard shots from Yanez, stayed conscious, which is not overly surprising. He actually recovers really, really well. But he was like not even particularly hurt when he ate those shots. That was very impressive. It looks like the time away has rejuvenated his durability a little bit. And that's nice. And he utilized the things that Giannis has had problems with vis-a-vis the jab to set up some things and eventually finished him off in the first round with an impressive stoppage finish. Good for Rob Font. Like, I was wrong on this fight. I picked Font to lose. But damn, if I'm not incredibly impressed and happy because I like Rob Font. I like his approach to things. I like his ideas. I like how he has actually learned to become a better fighter over time. I just said MMA fighters are not overly introspective. Font might be a somewhat exception to that rule. And yeah, I loved it. I enjoyed it. Go watch this fight again and again and again. It was really, really impressive. And it was impressive from Yanez as well. He lost a fight that I picked him to win, but he did not look terrible. He had some answers for the jab. He had some ways around the jab to land good counters and flurries and do his thing. It was a perfect synergy moment where, yes, an up-and-coming fighter hit a roadblock that he could not overcome. But at the same time, he looks like he could overcome that roadblock in the future. And Rob Font gets a second lease on like life in this division. I love it. I love it. Rob Font versus Kyler Phillips is my pick. I've been matching Kyler Phillips up with everyone. Please give that man a fight. Clearly, I need it. Adrian Yanez versus Jonathan Martinez. I love both of those ideas. Kelvin Holland versus Santiago Ponzinibbio. Aside from getting his leg chewed up by Ponzinibbio, Kevin Holland did a pretty good job here. It was awkward. It was creative. It was still something I can't really trust. Like, there is just an inherent way that Kevin Holland fights that I don't trust. But he is massive at welterweight, and if you keep him away from a really, really good wrestler, I'll probably keep picking him because he went out there, showed some good stuff. Yes, his defense for getting low kicked is not good, and Ponzinibbio wrecked it up, but Ponzinibbio really kind of found himself out of this fight after the first round, really. I thought he had some good things going in the first round. He was pressuring, and like, what were the numbers? This is another case. I'd be a little bit interested to see what the numbers were here. I thought he was going forward. Oh no, he was outnumbered 29-13. Wow. Yeah, no. It was really just the third round that he got anything going, and I think the third round he got something going because Holland's leg was really, really, really compromised, as opposed to anything that Ponzinibbio was doing particularly correctly. This one was a bit sad. Don't get me wrong, I picked Holland to win, but it does seem like I don't think Ponzinibbio at a high level, we're talking like top 20, top 25 of the division, has a lot of ways to win fights anymore. He was a fighter I was a massive fan of. He was putting Argentina on the map. He was doing his thing. He was exciting. He was crowd pleasing. He was very good, and he was very, very smart and adaptable and whatever. But it just seems like he has lost all the physicality that made it work. And watching him get beaten by Alex Morono up until knocking him out, and then watching him get beat by Kevin Holland here, not just on a purely physical level, but on a tactical level as well, was not a great look. And Kevin Holland did his thing, called out George Masvidal afterwards. Wants that fight, obviously not going to happen. George is retiring, and George is not. If George gets lured back to fighting, because this is MMA and a retirement is almost always temporary, it won't be to fight Kevin Holland. So that went out the door, which is a shame because I'd love that fight. I have a desire to see him fight Randy Brown, and Ponzinibbio I have against Nicholas Dalby. He did finish Ponzinibbio and then go out and talk with Donald Trump. So Kevin Holland, also probably not great politics. Raul Rosas Jr., Christian Rodriguez. I picked Rosas Jr. I thought that Rodriguez would be incapable, possibly even unwilling, to avoid Rosas' fight. I was right, and Rosas gassed himself. He went out there, he was trying incredibly hard to get a takedown, shooting from way on the outside, like terrible shots. Did get him down, though, because like I said, Rodriguez has never seen a scramble, has never seen a clinch that he will not fully participate in, and Rosas won the first round. Almost strangled him. There were some people I want to say that were calling for a 10-8 here, and I imagine we'll talk about this with Hughes and Morin later on. I didn't think it was really there. Now I will say this, both in the case of this first round and Morin versus Hughes. Let's get this out of the way right now. I would like those to be more than 10-9 rounds because they're impressive rounds that have near fight ending offense and actual damage done, and in this case, as opposed to damage, but they would apply to damage, very, very close to actually ending the fight and actual dominant moments, which would be great. That should be more than, and the Hughes fight is going to be a better example of this, more than what comes afterwards. The second round of this fight should be 10-8, 10-9 Rodriguez, and then the first round should be 10-8 Rosas, and then the third round, when Rodriguez was really, 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 really gassed out and unable to do things, that would be a 10-8 for Rodriguez. For the record, Rosas may be giving us the lowest strike count ever, because apparently he landed 2 significant strikes in the entire fight. That is terrible. And in the third round, there were some submission attempts from Rodriguez. People are calling this a fraud check. Let me be clear of what I think when I hear the words fraud check, because this could be just a vernacular vocabulary disagreement. This is not a fraud check because this is an 18-year-old kid fighting in the UFC against a good fighter. Christian Rodriguez is a good fighter. He's not an amazing fighter, but he's a good fighter. And he has a ton to learn, and he should have a ton to learn. What I mean by this is that a fraud is someone who's supposed to be a finished product, who's at the end of their development path, and comes out and shows off this idea that they supposedly had, that they supposedly were good at, that they were supposedly ready at, and then they fail. Jake Matthews got fraud checked a little bit against Matt Semmelsberger, for example, because he was supposed to be making this major turn and turning into this slick counter fighter and whatever, and it just turned out Andre Fiallo is just bad. I don't think anything here about Rosas is something you should have been surprised by. He expends a ton of energy off the bat, and Rodriguez just weathered the storm and took over. It was something I could see coming. And I picked Rosas Jr. I picked Rosas to win because I thought, I essentially I thought we'd get the first round and that would be the end of it. That Rodriguez himself would also be a little bit tired, possibly finished, and that we wouldn't get to this second stage. Hopefully, Rosas takes this as a learning experience and becomes better off of it because the kid doesn't appear to have any kind of plan B for his life. And that is bad. I was saying this. I'm always there. There isn't really a good outcome from the teenage fighter historically. You've got Jordan Meehan, who by his own words is pretty miserable in life now. You've got Sage Northcutt, who bombed. And you've got like Rosas, who's now got this loss. Like, I don't know. I really want this to have a happy ending. I just don't know that it does. I don't know. And there's not enough money in MMA to be worth it. Rodriguez's next fight, I've got MSP Cameron Simon. Another fighter who needs a lot of work, and this could be a check for him. And for Rosas Jr., because I assume the UFC still wants to put him near main cards, or at least very high up on prelims, you're probably stuck going with someone like Mana Martinez, who is kind of like Raul Rosas, who probably had his parents choose this career for him. Start really, really young, because Mana Martinez is like a 12-year-old black belt. Was a black belt at 12, I should say. He's not 12 now. But that doesn't have like the physical edge to really make it work. So like, that's a fight Rosas should win, while still having some meaning and someone who has like enough composure that Rosas can work on some new things. But yeah, I don't think it's a fraud check, because I don't think you can fraud check someone this young. Like, for comparison purposes, this is a kid who would be in junior hockey, OHL, WHL, Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, or he would be not even eligible to play in the NFL, or he would be a single A baseball player. Like, that's the kind of like development phase that we're at with this kid. And I think it's a little bit much to go fraud check. But it was a bad moment. Kelvin Gastelum actually went out there and did his thing against Chris Curtis. Now, I will say this is where we get into bad judging, because I've been pretty friendly about the judging up until now. I backed I'm blanking on his name now. Eric Cologne for giving round one to George Masvidal. But Michael Tate, my friend, how did you get 30-27 in this fight? How did you give the third round of this fight to Kelvin Gastelum? He got outlanded. He got hurt. Curtis did a good job of defending himself, rolling his shoulders, doing the things that led a lot of people to picking Chris Curtis in this fight. Now, I do think Gastelum won the fight. He won the first round. He outlanded him. He had really good moments. The second round, I always assumed would go to him because of that headbutt that happened. There was a clash of heads. Curtis went down. It was technically an illegal strike, but it gave a dominant moment, an incredibly bad optical moment for him to Kelvin Gastelum, and I assumed he would win that round. And I do think Gastelum probably won the rest of the round. He landed a little bit more, and essentially Chris Curtis does not have a round-winning style. It's very much about getting a finish and getting like big moments, and the big moments didn't really come. He did hurt Gastelum a couple of times, but Gastelum hurt him back enough that didn't really matter. Gastelum looked good. I'm gushing about this. He's at Fight Ready now, which is a camp I really, really want to dislike, because I find Henry Cejudo so cringe, and I find the whole idea of spiritual advisor Santino DeFranco so cringe as well. But they're doing an amazing job. And Gastelum showed feints. He showed different entries. He showed all the things that I thought was lacking from his game, and that has been lacking from his game, that I thought Curtis would pick apart. And he managed to actually make things happen. This was the Rob Font. Like, we talked about Rob Font having a rejuvenating moment. Kelvin Gastelum, a guy I thought was done, was so done, went out there and put together an amazing performance. Oh boy, I'm legitimately excited for what he does next. That's how excited I am. Now, I do want to simmer it down because there were some people throwing out some ideas that he should fight like legit contenders after this. I have the winner of Brad Tavares Bruno Silva as his next opponent. Let me see if this is a fluke. Let me see if this is a problem with Curtis. Because we know Curtis has his own problems. Let him go out there and fight someone else kind of mid-card, with another name and enough veteran savvy that'll add some tests, and let's see what he does. And Curtis, I've got the winner of Fluffy Hernandez, Edmund Shabazian is his next opponent. Because both of those guys are guys who Curtis can test in ways and see what they got. Not fraud check them necessarily, but like see if they're addressing some of their problems. Luana Pinheiro versus Michelle Waterson Gomez. This was the third and final rejuvenation fight. Actually, well, Calvillo to a certain degree even had one. Waterson went out there, actually avoided the clinch for the most part with Pinheiro, landed some really, really cool kicks. She had a really good front kick going. She had the Sterling Archer, this is my foot in your face moment that put, I wouldn't say knocked Pinheiro down, but like hurt Pinheiro, stumbled her up, put her on her butt, and was really looking good. Really, really, really looking good. Now, Pinheiro also had her own good things. Number one, the low kick game was very, very good. She had Waterson hobbling and not happy with eating calf kicks, similar to like Santiago Ponzinibbio, Kevin Holland. And also, when she could not bully Waterson, she kept coming. Like she tried different things. She tried other things. Like she is. This was her Ronda Rousey Holly Holm moment a little bit. Or at least like Ronda Rousey, Liz Carmouche maybe. Where, because the comparison with Pinheiro and Rousey's been made. Hot girl, judo background, Dana White loves her. Very, very bully, very physical. Probably thinks she's a better striker than she actually is. And it was like, okay, well, what happens? And like in the Sam Hughes fight, faded a little bit. When she couldn't just bully Sam Hughes repetitively. She did in the first round, but couldn't do it after that. She kind of like shut down a little bit. Still won. Still got the job done. But she did it again here where like, okay, you didn't have the greatest first round. And you kept trying. You kept doing some things. The leg kick, I think, went away a little bit as the fight went on. That's something I wouldn't recommend because the leg kick was a big deal for Pinheiro. I thought Waterson did win this fight. I thought Waterson won the first round. I thought Pinheiro won the second round. I thought Waterson won the third round. And people were saying, did the first round get stolen by a very, very big flurry that Pinheiro had at the end? And the answer, unfortunately, is yes. Chris Lee, Eric Colon, and Alessio Rodriguez all gave the first round to Pinheiro. And I don't think that's the right call. It was a very impressive flurry, don't get me wrong. But it was also a round where she did get sat down on her butt. Not necessarily by power, but she did get sat down. She did get pieced up a little bit. So I don't like that round going to her. I actually thought that there was a better offering for the third round going for her. Because I thought the third round was kind of like the worst round for both women. Like Waterson's leg was compromised and wasn't able to throw the kicks with as much aptitude as she had in the past. And Pinheiro was a little bit tired. I do think that there were some cardio issues there, and a little frustrated probably. But yeah, I don't love it. Although the official numbers were 22-10, so actually maybe I'm wrong on that. In favor of Waterson. I thought Waterson should win the fight. I disagree. I really disagree with Eric Colon's scorecard here because Colon gave rounds 2 and 3 to Waterson Gomez. I expected to agree with him because he had the 29-28 that I had. But my guy, you gave Pinheiro the first and not the second? That might actually legitimately be the worst card of the bunch, even though it had the right winner. Oh boy. Yeah. This is a good fight for Waterson and for Pinheiro, even though I thought the wrong person won. For Pinheiro, I've got the winner of Piero Rodriguez, Jillian Robertson. Those are particularly Robertson's got some physicality. Robertson's got that wrestling game that would actually perhaps be the first moment of really testing Pinheiro how far she can go with this head toss game and not really a lot of grappling to back it up. That's a good fight. I like that. And for Waterson, I've got Cheyenne Velismus as her next opponent. Joe Pyfer melted Gerald Mershart. I don't have a ton more to say about that. He went out there, he did the thing. I looked silly on Twitter because I said, what makes you think that GM3 should win this fight? Because he was getting a lot of love on Twitter. And like the answer is obvious. I even said in my preview, he hits really, really hard, and GM3 is kind of slow and usually does get hit really, really hard. So I looked incredibly stupid on this one. Good win for Pyfer. I do really want him to succeed. The whole homeless guy to like a UFC contender or something. It would be great. It's a humanizing moment even for Dana, so the company obviously loves it. He's hardworking. I like everything about him. I just find myself watching him fight and going, this is just too raw. Like it's a powerful game. He hits hard. He's a threat. He's a threat to beat anybody because I think he can chin check anybody. But there is a lack of nuance to him. And I can't get over watching him on Dana White Contender Series having a competitive fight with Dustin Stolfus and be like, no, this guy actually has the physical acumen to be a top 10 fighter. I don't know. I want it to be true. I do. I really do. I just don't. I don't see it. I don't like GM3's move to Kill Cliff, actually. They said he was packing up and getting ready to move down to Florida and go to Kill Cliff. I actually really don't like that move because Kill Cliff, don't get me wrong, Kill Cliff is a top 5 gym in the country. Like my top 5 is American Kickboxing Academy, American Top Team, Kill Cliff FC, Fight Ready in Arizona. And I don't even know if there's a 5th. Who would the 5th be? There's a couple of candidates. Extreme Couture. Extreme Couture in Vegas. That's my top 5. That's my like Mount Rushmore +1 gyms right now. But my thing is that every gym has to fit someone correctly. And Kill Cliff is a gym that breaks you down and rebuilds you from the ground up. And you have to have, number 1, the ego to survive that. And number 2, more importantly, you need the time to survive that. And I don't think Gerald Mershart, who is, I want to say he's in his late 30s. I want to say this, but I don't have him up right now because I'm a dumbass. Gerald Mershart, there he is. No, not just Gerald. Gerald Mershart, please. Yeah, he's 35 years old. That's a little bit younger than I thought he was. I thought he was older than me. I just don't think that there's enough time there, honestly. It's just a bad time to be moving gyms. So I don't love the move. For next opponents, I've got Pyfer against Jung Young Park, who's another guy who is a guy he has a lot of physical edges over because Jung Young Park is not super physical, but is a much better boxer than GM3. Has much cleaner defense than GM3. And for GM3, I've got Julian Marquez because I have no idea how that fight has not happened. Cynthia Calvillo versus Lupita Godinez. Godinez had a really solid first round. I really, really, really liked it. She came out, was looking good with the hooks, particularly her hooks look very sharp. She was finding her range nice, developing some variety, hitting the jab to the body, mixing up the targets, and to be clear, not everything revolved around her needing to wrestle, which is something that has historically been a problem for her. So it was a good round. It was a great round, and then it went away in the second and third round. Calvillo in the first round had a really, really hard time finding her range. There was a perfect example where she threw a front push kick that missed by like a solid 1.5 feet and looked very much like Calvillo. But yeah, the second and third rounds were not great, but it was good to see Calvillo actually do some things. I literally scored them 10-10s. I have no problem if you score it either way, so I don't have a problem with Calvillo winning on Eric Cologne's scorecard or Godinez winning 29-28 on Alessio Rodriguez's scorecard or Dave Torelli giving all 3 rounds to Godinez. I don't have a problem with that. The second and third round were just not really definitive rounds. I am curious, what does the stats page say? Because the stats page has Calvillo landing a lot more strikes. In both of those rounds, actually, she has a net 6 and a net 12. Net 12, wow. In the third round. I guess Calvillo probably did win this fight, but I just was most impressed with Godinez in the first round and thought that was the best round anybody had in the fight. So I don't have a problem with this. But it was nice to see Calvillo go out there and not look completely shot. I still think that this woman had a lot of promise, a lot of ability, and just went every time there was a wrong decision to make in her career, she made it, which is a problem. It is a big problem, and Loopy is doing some things. And she's too old, I think, to come back from it now. She doesn't have the physicality she used to have. Loopy versus Baby Shark, Tabitha Ricci, and Calvillo have got Ariane Carnelossi. Trey Ogden and Ignacio Bahamondes was not great. The commentary was really jizzing over Bahamondes. I thought he was really just a tall guy that Ogden didn't really ask any questions of. I had him winning all 3 rounds, doing his thing, being good. Like, I don't want to sound too negative about it because Bahamondes went out there and he won. He took his 6'3" frame and his massive reach and the fact that Ogden is just not very good and he did his thing. But I don't think he did anything impressive, I guess is what I'm saying. He got the win. He was supposed to get the win. He moves on to a bigger challenge in Jamie Malarkey, in my opinion. And Ogden is like 100% pigeonholed into the welcome to the party, pal spot where he fights like a dude coming off Dana White Contender Series or something. Steve Garcia knocked out Shailin Nurenbeke. The fight started the way I thought it was going to. Garcia is super awkward. Nurenbeke lighting him up with overhand rights and hitting him really, really hard, dropping him in the first minute, hurting him badly a couple of times, controlling him from top position, doing his thing, winning the first round. But then Garcia gets back to his feet at the end of the round and actually kind of starts to hurt Nurenbeke. And there was probably actually an illegal kick there by Nurenbeke. And then in the second round, Garcia comes out and just plots him. Just absolutely plants him. How long did it take? Was it in the first minute? I think it was. Yeah, 36 seconds into the second round. Garcia just drops him and kills him. And I guess I shouldn't be overly surprised because Nurenbeke has bad defense and has been lit up before and hit really, really hard before. And Garcia does kind of specialize in kind of like these sort of super awkward finishes. But I don't know. It leaves me feeling kind of hollow because I still think Garcia has absolutely the most uncoordinated game in UFC featherweight history, honestly. And he's slow. And he's the Mike Winklejohn product of striking that only works if you're Holly Holm and you have massive physical advantages over everybody else, or you're John Jones and you have massive physical advantages over everyone else. And for everyone else, I don't think it works. And Garcia should lose his next fight. For Nurenbeke, I just want to see some improvement. I want to see him get better. He's got the physicality. He's got the wrestling game. He's got the power. He just needs to put things together. I've got Garcia against Ricardo Ramos next, and I got Nurenbeke versus Herbert Burns in a battle of disappointing prospects. And we finally get to the Sam Hughes, Jacqueline Amorin fight, which I was talking about for a while. I picked Amore in this fight. And I picked Amore because she had looked impressive. She looked like she really had some good grappling, and we have seen Hughes get out grappled. Most notably by Vanessa Demopoulos. And I was worried that there was just like a physical disadvantage there for Hughes that she couldn't overcome. But I did say in my preview, if this fight goes deep, I have all kinds of worries about Amorin's non-existent striking game and the fact that she has never really faced somebody who provides her with actual resistance and pushes a pace. And my God, was the second and third round of this fight really sad for Amorin. She spent the second round essentially pulling guard after failing takedowns and into the third round as well. And it was kind of annoying because on my Discord, one of the viewers, Juliana, shout out to Juliana, pointed out that like, why are you taking such a defensive neutralizing guard? If you're going to pull guard, at least do something that attacks. At least do something that threatens an arm or a choke or a sweep or something. It was really sad. It's not over for her by any means, but this to me was more of a fraud check than anyone else because Amorin, I don't want to say she's super old or anything. Let me pull her up here. Yeah, she's 27. So, I mean, it's not ridiculous. But, like, 27 years old, this was a fraud check. Everyone was talking about Raul Rosas getting fraud checked on this card. Some people were even talking about Alex Pereira getting fraud checked on this card. No, this was the fraud check moment. She's got time and she's got the physicality to regroup and get better. But, oh, Lord. Oh, this was bad. You're an American top team. Like, you should be better than this. Anyways, Sam Hughes got it done in very Sam Hughes fashion. There were people arguing for a 10-8 first round. I would have to say that round, which saw Amorin get back control and a couple of near rear naked chokes and whatever, is just not historically... it's not historically been the actual 10-8 criteria, to be honest, because she didn't land a boatload of punches. I will defer to the stats here real quick. Amorin landed 12 significant strikes the entire fight. She had 2 takedowns, 3 sub attempts. Most of that being in the first round, obviously. She landed 11 strikes in that round, despite being on back control and top and whatever. She had 3 very close submissions, don't get me wrong, but like Hughes had an armbar and landed a similar number of strikes. Like, it's just not a 10-8 round, I guess. It probably should be. Again, this would be the patented case of I actually would be fine with this being a 10-8 round and then this being a draw because Hughes just kind of cruised through the other 2 rounds. I'd be fine with that, but that's not how the scoring has worked historically. For Amorin, I have got her welcoming someone to the party, so she's in the Trey Ogden spot just with like upward mobility. And for Sam Hughes, I got Jasmine Hauerguide. I think those two would put together a pretty exciting fight. It would be one that Hughes loses, but it would probably give her a little bit of shine and give her a moment to be a featured prelim or something, or on the main card of a fight night. So that is all for UFC 287. It was a good card overall. I enjoyed it. And we're off to the UFC Fight Night next with Max Holloway versus Arnold Allen. And that's also got Edson Barbosa versus Billy Quarantillo and Dustin Jacoby versus Azamat Mirzakhanov and your boy Tanner Boser on the card. So I'm pretty happy about that, actually. Pretty stoked. Pretty thrilled. PFL happened this weekend. I haven't watched it. Apparently, Evelyn Martinez went heavy on the Christian side. Oh, by the way, Steve Garcia did that too. If Jesus Christ could shed some blood on the cross, I can shed some blood in here. That is a ridiculous statement. Again, you can be religious. You can have your faith. You can draw strength wherever you want. But my Lord, some of you Christian nutters in the UFC, please think before you speak. It's just ridiculous. It's just terrible. It probably should offend religious people. Anyways. Was there anything I think worth watching? I do kind of want to go back and watch Bruno Capelloza knock out Matthias Scheffel, but I'm seeing a lot of decisions here. Elena Kolesnik beating Aspen Ladd. That's just sad. Larissa Pacheco did not finish Julia Budd. I can probably figure that out in my head. Baggio Ali Walsh won, but am I the only one that really just does not care about Baggio Ali Walsh being Muhammad Ali's grandson until he actually fights somebody? Like, am I the only one like that? I don't know. And Kuniev won. I might go watch that. I do have some faith in Rizvan Kuniev. Maurice Green got a standing TKO. That's cool. I check that out. Danilo Marquez beat Jorgen De Castro. I can imagine what that looked like. Hey, Amber Leibrock got a win. Amber Leibrock used to be like a really hyped prospect, and it never really panned out. Beat Martina Jindarova, who's not a bad fighter, but not a good fighter either. Carolina Sobek lost. That's a shame. And Maria Maknatkina picked up a win as well. I don't know. It might be worth watching, but like I haven't watched it, so I can't exactly endorse it. And a lot of what I read off just doesn't really seem all that fun or impressive. So there you go. Like I said, I think PFL screwed up by putting women's featherweight and heavyweights on the same card as their like their class partnership type deal. I think that's just a bad idea. All right, moving on to next week. Have fun. My Gronks, my Super Mega Baseball series will start up this Tuesday, if you want to check that out. And I've got surgery scheduled for Wednesday. So fun times ahead for me, for your boy. Anyways, I will see you next week.